My name is Harry, and this is the story of how my world shattered in the most humiliating, gut-wrenching way possible. I was standing in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to breathe. My heart slammed against my ribs like a war drum. I could still hear them, her and him, even though they weren't here anymore. The echoes of their voices, the disgusting moans, the whispered promises she made to him in my own damn house. It all rang in my ears like a sickening soundtrack to my downfall. The back door creaked open. Footsteps. Casual, carefree. Like she hadn't just detonated a bomb on our marriage. Sarah Tancredi strolled in, flipping her golden hair over her shoulder. Her hips swaying like she wasn't the biggest liar to ever walk this earth. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, twisted the cap off, and took a slow sip. So damn normal. She turned to me, her lips curving into the kind of smirk that made my blood boil. "Are you still mad?" she asked, like she had just forgotten my birthday or burned dinner. Not like she had been spreading her legs for another man. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought my teeth might crack. My fingers dug into the counter. And then I said it. The words that wiped that smug look right off her face. "Where are the batteries, Sarah Tancredi?" She froze. The bottle of water slipped from her fingers and hit the floor, rolling away in slow motion. Her eyes, wide and full of horror, locked onto mine. Oh, she knew. She *ing knew. **. Too late. That one sentence held all the weight of the evidence I had. All the proof of what she did. Sarah opened her mouth, but nothing came out. A choked breath, maybe. A silent prayer for an excuse. A way out. There wasn't one. I took a step forward, my voice deathly calm. "Go ahead. Say something. Lie to me again." She shook her head, backing up slightly. But she wasn't scared, not yet. No, she was calculating. Trying to figure out how much I knew. If she could still wiggle her way out. 2F********* ing late for that, sweetheart. Because I had seen it all. And the worst part? She didn't even bother hiding it well. Want to hear how I found out? How my dumbass wife, the woman I trusted with my life, got caught red-handed. Oh, trust me. You're gonna love this. I wasn't supposed to be home that night. That's the part that gets me the most. If everything had gone according to plan, I never would have known. I would have come home the next morning, kissed Sarah on the cheek, told her I missed her, while some other guy's scent was still on her skin. That's how close I was to living in ignorance. I was on a business trip, or at least I was supposed to be. But my meeting in Chicago got canceled last minute, and instead of staying the night in a hotel, I decided to surprise my wife. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see the look on her face when I walked through the door. Turns out, the look on my face was the one worth seeing. The moment I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. The house was dark, except for the dim glow of our bedroom window. The curtains were slightly open, and then I saw it. A shadow. Moving. 2 figures. For a second, my brain refused to believe it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe Sarah had the TV on. Maybe. But then I saw the way the shadow moved. The way it pressed against hers. The way they swayed together. A rhythm I knew too well. Everything inside me went cold. I didn't storm in like some crazed lunatic. No, I took my time. I parked the car silently, walked up the steps without making a sound. My hands were steady, my heartbeat eerily slow. I don't know what I expected, but the moment I opened that door, any doubts I had were obliterated. The first thing I heard was her voice. You're so much better than him." A low chuckle. A deep, unfamiliar voice. "Yeah? Does he even make you feel like this?" Her moan was the only answer he needed. I saw red. Not in the cliché way people say. No, it was real. My vision blurred with it. I could have burst in right then. I could have dragged that piece of **** out of my bed. Made him regret every choice that led him to this moment. But I didn't. I wanted to see how far she would go. So I waited. I listened. Every filthy word out of her mouth, every disgusting sound, burned itself into my brain. She wasn't just cheating. She was degrading me while she did it. Laughing. Mocking. as if I was some clueless joke. That was when I knew this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was who she was. I had two choices. Bust in like an animal, let rage take over, give them both exactly what they deserved, or be smarter. Play the long game. Let the weight of her betrayal crush her under its own weight. I chose the latter. When they finally finished, I heard her giggle, soft and sweet. You should go before he gets home. I don't want him getting suspicious. Too late for that, sweetheart. I slipped out before she even knew I was there. Drove around for an hour, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I needed a plan, evidence, proof that would rip her world apart the way she had ripped apart mine. So I got it. Cameras, audio, every little detail. And now I stood in my kitchen, staring at the woman who had ruined everything. Sarah still hadn't moved. The panic in her eyes was spreading. Her lips parted, but she wasn't sure what to say. I let the silence stretch, let her sweat. Then, calmly, I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and hit play. The audio filled the kitchen. You're so much better than him. Sarah gasped like she had been slapped. I tilted my head. You recognize that voice, don't you? Her hands flew to her mouth. Harry, I cut her off with a chuckle. A dark, humorless thing. Don't even try it. Don't insult me more than you already have. Her eyes darted to the door, as if she was considering running. Go ahead, I said. But if you do, just know the next thing I do is send this to every single person you know. Your parents, your friends, your boss. Her face drained of color. Please, she whispered. Let's talk about this. I should have been furious. I should have been throwing things, screaming. But I felt nothing. Just a cold, calculated calm. You want to talk? I asked, stepping closer. Fine. Let's talk about why you thought I was so ***ing stupid. Let's talk about how many times you laughed behind my back. Let's talk about how little respect you have for the man who gave you everything. Asterisk. She swallowed hard. It wasn't like that. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Oh, really? Then tell me, Sarah. How was it? She didn't answer. I leaned in, my voice a deadly whisper. Let me guess. It was a mistake? It didn't mean anything? You were lonely? Or my personal favorite? You were going to tell me eventually. Her silence said everything. You're disgusting. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Sarah's expression twisted. The guilt, the fear, it was all disappearing. In its place, something uglier. You know what, Harry? She snapped. Maybe if you weren't so damn boring, I wouldn't have needed someone else. That did it. That flipped the last switch inside me. I nodded slowly. Got it. She frowned. Got what? I smiled. And then, without another word, I turned around, walked to the living room, grabbed my laptop, and opened it. What are you doing? She asked, her voice rising. I didn't answer. I just attached the files and hit send. Sarah lunged forward, panic flashing in her eyes as she grabbed my arm. Harry, wait! Her voice cracked, raw with fear. Not regret, not love, fear. Because she knew her entire life was about to go up in flames. I shrugged her off like she was nothing. Too late. Her hands flew to her head, fingers tangled in her perfect golden hair as she spun in place, her breaths coming fast and shallow. Who did you send it to? Who did you send it to? I took my time closing my laptop, leaned back, crossed my arms, watched her squirm. Who do you think? Her pupils blew wide. Her lips trembled. She was doing the math, realizing the damage. Her parents, who still thought she was their perfect little princess. Her boss, the one who preached about morality and ethics in the workplace. Her friends, half of whom were probably covering for her, and the other half who would eat this scandal up like starving vultures. Her knees buckled, and she stumbled back against the counter, gripping it for support. You're lying, she whispered. I smirked. Try me. She shot forward again, grabbing my shirt this time, desperation leaking out of her like a broken faucet. Harry, listen. I know you're mad. I get it. But you don't have to ruin my life over this. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Like how you ruined mine. She flinched. It wasn't. Don't. I cut in sharply. Don't you dare try to downplay this. I leaned in, so close I could see the thin layer of sweat on her forehead. You brought another man into our bed, Sarah. Our bed. You laughed about it. Mocked me. And now you want to act like you're the victim. Her lip curled, and there it was. The real Sarah. The mask slipped, and she sneered. Fine. You want to know the truth, Harry? She threw her arms up. Yeah, I cheated. And guess what? I don't regret it. I stared at her, waiting. She was breathing hard, chest rising and falling, fire in her eyes. You're pathetic. You never made me feel the way I needed to feel. You're predictable. A doormat. You just existed. She laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. God. It was so easy to lie to you. I barely even had to try. Something inside me snapped. But not in the way she expected. Because instead of getting angry, instead of throwing things or yelling like she wanted me to, I smiled. And that scared her more than anything. She stepped back, swallowing hard. What are you smiling about? I stood up, towering over her, watching as she shrank under my gaze. You think you broke me, Sarah? I let out a low chuckle. You think I'm going to be the guy who sits around crying over you? Letting you crawl back when your life falls apart. Her jaw clenched. You don't have to be a dick about it. I laughed again. I couldn't help it. The audacity of this woman. You burned our marriage to the ground. And now you're mad at me for holding the match? I shook my head, pure amusement running through me. You're unbelievable. Her eyes darted to my laptop. If you take it back, if you unsend it, maybe we can talk about this. I raised a brow. Talk about what, Sarah? How you're gonna gaslight me into thinking this was my fault. How you're gonna fake cry and beg me to forgive you, just so you don't lose your cushy little life. I took a step closer. I'd rather set this house on fire and watch you crawl through the ashes. Her bottom lip quivered, but I wasn't buying the act anymore. She knew she had lost. Harry! She tried again, softer this time. I shook my head. Pack your S*******. You've got 15 minutes to get out. She blinked. You can't be serious. I pointed to the clock on the wall. 14 minutes and 50 seconds now. She scoffed, crossing her arms. Where am I supposed to go? I grinned. Maybe your little boy toy has a spare room. Her face turned red, and for a split second, I saw something else. Embarrassment. Not because of what she did, but because she got caught. I wasn't giving her another second. I walked past her, grabbed a duffel bag, and tossed it at her feet. Fill it, or I will. She hesitated. I could see the wheels turning. Was she really gonna test me? I took a deep breath and cracked my knuckles. 13 minutes. That did it. She spun on her heel and stormed out of the kitchen, her footsteps pounding against the hardwood. A door slammed upstairs. I listened as she yanked drawers open, throwing things into the bag. And for the first time in months, I felt good. I leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. This was it. This was the moment I took my life back. Sarah was no longer my problem. She was just another mistake I was finally cleaning up. The sound of drawers slamming upstairs was like music to my ears. Every frantic movement, every muffled curse, every hurried shuffle of fabric being shoved into a bag. It was the sound of her losing, the sound of consequences. I poured myself a drink, something strong, something that burned on the way down but felt damn good in my chest. I savored it, leaning against the counter, staring at the staircase as if I could see right through the walls. I imagined her up there, panicking, her perfect little world crumbling with every second that ticked by. She thought she had time. She thought she had control. But she never realized that control was never hers to begin with. She had been living on borrowed time, and tonight the debt was due. I took another sip, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. It wasn't the numb, broken kind of peace. No, it was clarity. Like taking a deep breath after being underwater for too long. A loud thud from upstairs. Then silence. I set my glass down, tilting my head slightly. "Tick-tock, Sarah," I called out. A few seconds passed before I heard footsteps again. Faster this time. She was rushing. Good. She should be. When she finally came down, she had the duffel bag slung over her shoulder, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at her phone, fingers moving fast over the screen. Probably texting someone. Maybe her side piece, maybe a friend, maybe her damn lawyer for all I cared. She stopped in the middle of the living room, staring at the floor. "I have nowhere to go." I let out a sharp laugh. "Not my problem." She finally looked up, eyes dark with something I couldn't quite place. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "I really am." She sucked in a breath through her nose. "You're making a mistake." That almost made me laugh again. The sheer delusion. Even now, after everything, she thought she could manipulate me. She thought I would fold, that I would hesitate, that I would let her stay even after she spat in my face with her betrayal. I took a slow step toward her, letting every ounce of disgust I felt show in my expression. "Sarah, you've made a lot of bad choices. But right now, your worst one is thinking I'd ever let you manipulate me again." Her jaw tightened. She wasn't used to this version of me. She was used to complacency. To me being the nice guy, the patient guy, the one who overlooked things, gave her the benefit of the doubt, ignored the small warning signs because I loved her. Not anymore. That patience had died the second I heard her tell another man I was nothing to her. She exhaled through her teeth and looked toward the door. I could see the storm brewing inside her, the anger she was trying to keep in check. Not because she was sorry, not because she felt bad. Asterisk asterisk, but because she wasn't in control. Asterisk asterisk. She hated that. Her fingers curled tighter around the strap of her bag. "I need more time." I shook my head. "You're out of time." She took a step toward me, voice lowering. "Listen, Harry. I get that you're pissed. But you're making this worse than it has to be." I let out a breathy laugh, stepping even closer. "Worse? Worse?" I leaned in, just enough to make her uncomfortable. "Sarah, you have no idea what worse looks like." For the first time tonight, I saw something real in her expression. Not guilt, not sadness. Fear. Asterisk asterisk. Good. Because I wanted her to feel a fraction of what I had felt. She straightened, regaining her composure, and lifted her chin. "You're going to regret this." I smiled, slow and sharp. "I regret ever meeting you. This is the best decision I've made in years." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. She just adjusted her bag, walked to the door, and yanked it open. The cold air outside rushed in, sending a chill through the house. She hesitated on the threshold, her shoulders stiff, like she was expecting me to call her back, to change my mind. I didn't. I just watched as she stepped out into the night, her figure illuminated by the dim porch light. She turned slightly, eyes searching mine one last time, maybe looking for weakness, maybe hoping for some last-minute forgiveness. She found nothing, so she left, and the second the door clicked shut behind her, I let out a long breath, like I had been holding it for years. The silence that followed was heavy, not the kind that suffocates you, but the kind that clears the air. For the first time in a long time I felt free, and as I stood there, staring at the empty space where she once stood, I realized something. She thought this was her punishment. She had no idea it was just the beginning. I stood there for a long time, letting the silence settle in, letting it wrap around me like a long overdue revelation. The house felt different already, lighter, like it had been suffocating under her presence, under her lies, under the sheer weight of her betrayal. Now it was just me, just mine. I walked back to the kitchen, picked up my drink, and finished it in one slow, satisfied swallow. The burn was good, a reminder that I was still here, still standing, still in control. The old Harry might have broken down. He might have sat in the wreckage, sobbing, questioning himself, wondering what he did wrong. But that Harry was gone. The bastard died the moment Sarah looked me in the eye and told me she didn't regret it. My phone vibrated on the counter. I glanced at the screen. A message from Sarah. "You're going to regret this." I smirked. "No, sweetheart. You are." I left the message unread and walked to the living room, letting my fingers trace along the furniture she once picked out. The little decorative touches she insisted on. The framed pictures still sitting on the mantel. Her perfect, practiced smile staring back at me in every one. I grabbed the nearest frame, studied it for a second, then let it slip from my fingers. Glass shattered, the sound sharp and satisfying. I did the same to the next one, and the next, until every trace of her was gone. The front door was still slightly open from when she left. I could still feel the cold creeping in, but I liked it. It was cleansing. I walked to the threshold and looked out into the night. She was gone. No car in the driveway, no silhouette lingering under the streetlight, no sign that she had ever been here at all. Good. I closed the door, locked it, and exhaled slowly. Then I grabbed my phone and made a call. "Hey," I said when the voice on the other end picked up. "You still got that lawyer's number?" There was a pause, then a low whistle. "Damn, man. It finally happened." Huh. I let out a breathy chuckle. "Yeah, and it's about to get a hell of a lot worse for her." "Good," my friend said. "She deserves it." She did. And I was going to make sure she got exactly what she deserved. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset, not because I was spiraling, but because I had work to do. By sunrise, Sarah's entire life was dismantled. The joint bank accounts, frozen. The credit cards, canceled. The lease on her car that was in my name, revoked. Every single thing she had used me for was now slipping through her fingers, and I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. Not after what she did. Not after the way she laughed about it. I took my time getting dressed that morning, feeling lighter than I had in years. I poured myself a coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and watched as the messages started rolling in. Sarah. Asterisk, what the hell? My card isn't working. Asterisk. Sarah. Asterisk, you froze the accounts? Are you kidding me? Asterisk. Sarah, Harry, pick up the phone right now. Sarah. Asterisk, you're acting like a child. Let's be adults about this. Asterisk. I smirked at that one. Adults? She wanted to be adults now? After sneaking around like a teenager behind my back? I took another sip of coffee and ignored her. Took about an hour before the call started. First from Sarah. Then from her mother. Then from a number I didn't recognize. Probably the guy she cheated with, thinking he could intimidate me into making this easier for her. Not a damn chance. By noon, my lawyer was drafting up the divorce papers. Ironclad. She wasn't getting a dime. Not a house, not a car, not a single piece of furniture she thought she was entitled to. Sarah finally snapped in the afternoon. Sarah, you can't do this to me. Sarah. Asterisk, I made a mistake. Okay? But you're being cruel. Asterisk. Sarah. Asterisk, is this what you want? To ruin me? Asterisk. I stared at that last message for a long moment. Then, finally, I typed back. Asterisk, no, Sarah. You ruined yourself. Asterisk. And I hit send. The silence after sending that message was deafening. I could almost hear Sarah screaming into her phone, pacing in whatever pathetic excuse for a place she had managed to crawl to. Maybe she was at a friend's house, fake crying on their couch, playing the victim. Maybe she was at a cheap motel, reality finally sinking its claws into her. Maybe she was with him, the guy she threw away our marriage for, expecting him to pick up the pieces. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. I sat back, stretching my legs out, the warmth of the coffee still lingering in my chest. The power shift was intoxicating. For years, I had let her steer the ship while I played the quiet, reliable husband. The fool who overlooked the long nights out, the sudden disinterest, the subtle disrespect that grew like rot in our home. But now she was drowning, and I wasn't throwing her a damn life raft. Another call. I let it ring, staring at her name flashing on the screen. Sarah. The same name I once traced on love notes, whispered in the dark, signed at the end of anniversary letters. Now, it meant nothing. I let it go to voicemail. 5 seconds later, a text. Sarah. Pick up the phone. Sarah. Asterisk, we need to talk. In person. Asterisk. Sarah. You can't just shut me out like this. I smirked. That's exactly what I could do. I went about my day, handling everything with the efficiency of a man who no longer had dead weight holding him back. I met with my lawyer. Signed every paper necessary to ensure Sarah walked away with nothing. Called the realtor. This house was mine, and it was about to be wiped clean of her existence. By the time I got home, the sky was darkening, the chill in the air crisp and sharp. I stepped inside, locked the door behind me, and sighed, feeling that sense of finality settle deeper into my bones. I was free. Then came the knock. I paused, tilting my head. Another knock. I already knew who it was. I made her wait. When I finally opened the door, there she was. Standing on the porch, arms crossed, her breath curling in the cold night air. She looked different, less put together. Her hair wasn't styled perfectly. Her makeup was smudged, and for the first time ever, she looked small. I leaned against the doorframe. What do you want, Sarah? She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face. You really won't let me explain, will you? I raised an eyebrow. Explain what? How you spent months lying to me. How you laughed at me while sneaking around with someone else. How you played me for a fool. I let out a short, humorless laugh. I think I got the picture. She exhaled hard, shaking her head. I wasn't happy, Harry. I let the words settle between us, watching her. That's the best you've got? I asked. Her lips parted, eyes flicking away. I don't know what else to say. Then don't say anything. I started closing the door. She pushed against it, stepping forward. Just let me inside. Okay? Can we just talk? I smiled. Not a nice one. No. Her jaw clenched. Come on, Harry. We've been together for years. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I leaned in, my voice dropping. You threw those years away. Not me. She inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. She didn't like this. The new me. The one who wasn't bending. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, voice cracking. Not my problem. You're being cruel. I laughed. And you weren't. Silence. I tilted my head. If you're waiting for me to feel bad, Sarah, you're going to be standing on this porch for a long time. Her face twisted, something dark flashing behind her eyes. You're a real piece of work, Harry. I grinned. So are you, sweetheart. She let out a bitter, humorless laugh, backing away. Fine, if that's how you want it. I nodded. It is. She turned sharply, storming down the steps, her boots clacking against the pavement. I watched her go, watched the way her shoulders were stiff, the way her hands balled into fists at her sides. She thought she'd win. She thought she'd charm her way back, spin a sob story, manipulate her way into making me the bad guy. Not this time. Not ever again. I closed the door, locked it, and for the first time in years I felt alive. The sound of the deadbolt clicking into place was like a final nail in the coffin. Sarah was gone. For good. No more lies, no more fake smiles, no more coming home to a woman who barely looked at me unless she needed something. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair, letting the silence of the house sink in. It was strange how quickly peace could replace chaos. Just 24 hours ago, I had been standing in this same spot, drowning in the truth of her betrayal. Now I was in control. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself another drink, and let the ice clink against the glass as I swirled it. The whiskey burned, but in a good way. In a real way. My phone buzzed on the counter. Again. I already knew who it was. Sarah. You're seriously not going to talk to me? Sarah. After everything? Sarah? Asterisk fine. You want to act like this? Watch what happens next. Asterisk. I scoffed. Threats now? She really didn't know when to quit. I placed the phone face down, ignoring it completely. Whatever she thought she had left in her arsenal, it wasn't enough. She had already lost. The house was eerily quiet. No sound of her pacing in the bedroom, no clatter of her jewelry on the nightstand, no scent of her perfume lingering in the air. It was like she had been erased. And honestly, I liked it. I grabbed a trash bag and started clearing out every last trace of her. Clothes she had left behind? Gone. The cheap little knickknacks she cluttered the shelves with? In the bag. The framed pictures I hadn't already destroyed? Smashed and tossed. This wasn't just about cleaning the house. This was about cleansing my life. By the time I was done, the bag was full, and the house felt lighter. I carried it outside, tossed it into the trash bin, and dusted off my hands like I was shaking off the last remnants of her existence. As I turned to go back inside, a car pulled up to the curb. Not just any car. His car. I recognized it instantly. The sleek, black sedan. The one I had seen parked outside that damn hotel when I caught them. My blood went ice cold. The door opened, and out stepped Nathan. Tall, smarmy, with the kind of arrogance that made you want to put your fist through his face. He adjusted his coat, ran a hand through his perfect hair, and smirked like he had already won some invisible battle. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at him, waiting. He stepped closer, shoving his hands into his pockets like we were just two guys having a casual chat. "Harry," I said nothing. He glanced at the trash bin, then back at me, chuckling. "Getting rid of the evidence, huh?" I clenched my jaw. He sighed, tilting his head. "Look, I know you're pissed, but I wanted to come by, man to man, and clear the air." I laughed, actually laughed. Man to man? This clown really thought we were equals? He grinned, mistaking my amusement for something else. "Listen, Sarah's upset. She says you're freezing her out." I took a slow step forward. He stiffened just a little. Not much, but enough for me to see it. "She's upset," I said, voice low. "That's funny." Nathan exhaled, feigning sympathy. "Look, I get it. This whole thing, it's messy. But you have to understand, people grow apart." I smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. "Is that what she told you?" He nodded. "She wasn't happy, Harry. And neither were you. She told me how distant you were. How you shut her out. How you—" My fist connected with his face before he could finish the sentence. The sound was beautiful. A solid, satisfying crack as his head snapped to the side. He stumbled back, gripping his jaw, eyes wide in shock. I stepped closer, my voice steady, calm. "You don't get to talk about my marriage. You don't get to stand on my property and act like you're some kind of hero." Nathan wiped his mouth, checking for blood. "Jesus, man." I grabbed him by the collar, shoving him back against his car. His hands shot up in surrender, panic flashing in his eyes. Hey, relax." I leaned in, my voice dropping to something just above a whisper. "You're a joke, Nathan. A pathetic little side piece who thinks he's important. Let me tell you something, you were nothing but a distraction to her. And now, you're nothing to me." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. I just, get out of here." He hesitated for a fraction of a second too long. I grabbed the back of his head and slammed it against the car door. Not hard enough to do serious damage, just hard enough to remind him who the hell he was dealing with. He yelped, stumbling to the side, clutching his forehead. "You're insane." I smiled. "Try me again and find out." Nathan didn't waste another second. He scrambled into his car, started the engine, and peeled off down the street like the coward he was. I stood there, breathing in the cold night air, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace. I stood there for a long moment, watching the red taillights of Nathan's car disappear down the street, the air still humming with the tension of what had just happened. My knuckles ached, but it was a good pain, a deserved pain, the kind that reminded me I was finally taking back my life, piece by piece. The neighborhood was quiet again. No headlights, no interruptions, no more parasites showing up at my doorstep, trying to explain away their garbage choices. Just me, just the cold night air, just the satisfaction of knowing that for the first time in years, I wasn't the one left in the dark. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. Not 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. I already knew what it would say before I even looked. Sarah. Asterisk, are you insane? You just attacked Nathan? What the hell is wrong with you? Asterisk. Sarah. Asterisk, this is why I left. You're unstable. Asterisk. Sarah. If you ever put your hands on him again, I swear to God. I tossed my phone onto the couch, rolling my shoulders, feeling the last of the tension melt away. Unstable? That was rich, coming from a woman who had spent months lying, sneaking, laughing in my face about it. And left? She hadn't left. She had been kicked out. I poured another drink, took my time savoring the moment. My mind replayed the look in Nathan's eyes when I slammed him against his own car. The way his fake confidence shattered in an instant. It was beautiful. But the best part? It was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up feeling better than ever. No weight on my chest. No gnawing dread at the back of my mind. No need to pretend I was okay while the woman I shared my life with was out screwing around with some low-rent version of me. I grabbed my phone, ignoring Sarah's new wave of messages, and got straight to business. First call? My lawyer. I want this divorce finalized as fast as possible, I said, leaning back in my chair. And I don't want her walking away with a single thing. He chuckled on the other end. Already in motion. She's not entitled to anything. The house is in your name, the accounts are locked, and she has no leverage. Perfect. Next, I made a few other calls. Utilities? Cut off. The phone plan I had been paying for? Gone. Every little luxury she had gotten used to, vanished. Sarah wanted to act like she was independent, like she had moved on. Fine. Let's see how she handled real independence. By noon, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I almost ignored it until I remembered something. Sarah's name was still on our old apartment lease. The one she had left behind when we moved into the house. The one I had been quietly maintaining while we were together, just in case we ever needed a backup plan. I answered. A deep voice came through the line. Mr. Carter? This is James from Westwood Apartments. I smirked. Right on time. Hey, James. What can I do for you? Well, it looks like Sarah tried to move back in, but her name's been removed from the lease. She's pretty upset. Wants to talk to you. I almost laughed. Of course she did. Nah, I said, leaning back. She can figure it out herself. A pause. Then James chuckled. Understood. We'll let her know. I hung up, picturing the moment Sarah realized she had nowhere to go. No apartment. No money. No credit cards. Just the consequences of her own actions. And just like that, my phone buzzed again. Sarah. What the hell did you do? Sarah. They won't let me back into the apartment. Sarah, you're trying to ruin me. Sarah. Answer me. I let her messages sit there, unread, unanswered. Let her feel the silence. The same silence I had felt when she was out late, ignoring my calls. The same silence I had felt when I caught her lying straight to my face. She had made her bed, and now she could rot in it. That night I went out for the first time in years. Just me. No stress. No weight on my shoulders. No fake smiles plastered on my face while Sarah sucked the life out of me. Just a good bar, some strong drinks, and a world of new possibilities. I sat at the counter, nursing a bourbon, when someone slid onto the stool next to me. I glanced over, expecting another drunk trying to strike up small talk. Instead, it was her. Not Sarah. Someone better. She smiled, tilting her head slightly. Rough night. I chuckled. Nah. Best night I've had in a long time. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Yeah? What changed? I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the ice clink softly against the glass. Then I set it down, met her gaze and smiled. I finally took out the trash. The next few weeks felt like a surreal dream. The days went by fast, each one filled with the kind of clarity I had never known before. Sarah's calls dwindled to nothing as she tried to patch up her life, her world crumbling around her. The reality of her own actions, of how she had shattered everything between us, was finally sinking in. But for me, each day felt like a victory. Not just the end of a marriage, not just the closure of a chapter one had long outgrown, but the beginning of something far more important. Freedom. I threw myself into new things, new projects, new relationships, new hobbies I had put on hold for years. The world seemed wide open, and I was no longer tethered to someone who had once promised me the world, only to take it all away for her own selfish desires. And it wasn't long before I met someone who understood what it was like to reclaim your life after being deceived. We didn't need words to explain ourselves. There was an understanding, a bond formed not out of desperation, but from the shared strength of moving forward. I still thought about Sarah sometimes. I still remembered the pain she caused. But it wasn't my problem anymore. It was hers, and I had made my peace with it. Life was different now, but in the best possible way. And as I stood at the edge of this new beginning, I couldn't help but smile. I had survived the worst, and in doing so, I had become something stronger than I ever thought possible. The only thing I could do now, live for me, live for the future, and never ever look back.